Let me know when you're ready. Yep.
Good. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex McDonald. I'm the business administrator for the township. Tonight is the Township of Millburn's Hurricane Preparedness Session. This is an annual event that we put on, an annual session that we put on for the public and bring the Office of Emergency Management and members of our public safety and response teams to discuss hurricane preparedness. As everyone may know, hurricane season starts on June 1st. What I am just going to state is that at tonight's meeting, there is not anyone in attendance. I think we have one individual on the Zoom. We are going to move through the presentation just for recording purposes. And at the end, if that individual is still on, we will make sure that they have an opportunity to answer questions. With that, I'm going to get started, and I'm going to introduce Fire Chief Rob Echeverria, who is the township's OEM coordinator, and we're going to get started with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Office of Emergency Management. What do we do? What we do here in Millburn Township, the Office of Emergency Management, is we plan for natural or man-made hazards. Our preparations before a storm hits is individualized between Public Works does their pre-storm prep, same thing with the police department, fire department, and also and the OEM office as well does the same thing. We looked at weather reports. We speak with our private meteorologist. We consult with nearby communities. We also have internal meetings with department heads. And we see what's coming our way, and then we each react depending on the department you're from. Response during a storm, how to keep safe, really pretty much is stay inside. If you know there's a heavy rain event, do not drive, and most importantly, do not walk around your neighborhoods. During storms, you can have live power wires down, you could have sewer grates open or storm drains open, and other hazards. It's unknown, and I would wait till the morning time the next day until cleanup has done, and then eventually venture out. Post-storm response depends on what's heading our way. So really, it depends on what came and what hit and to what intensity and all of those things. So an example like during Ida, our post-storm response was really on the recovery side, was seeing what type of damage occurred, the assessment to get the right assets to the residents of the community. On the fire department side, like post-storm response was, pumping out basements, and we'll go more into detail on that. Make a plan. Everybody should have a plan. Recently we had an earthquake that hit the town. Pretty much, I think no one probably had an earthquake plan, and it was really, scary to think like, wow, this could, if it was any worse, do we have a plan? We have that in our emergency operations plan and annex, but really it's not something that we're really well versed in because it's not something we deal with. We deal with a lot of storms, winter storms, summer storms, flooding events, but earthquake, not too much. Communication, we'll go into more details later of how we communicate with our residents, how we communicate internally and with our external partners. And then we'll go over some questions and comments at the end. So state of emergency. You get this all the time. The governor declared a state of emergency during a snowstorm. Well, that only means certain things. That only means that he's employing the available resources within the state government. And that's done through the State Director of Emergency Management, who's the colonel of the state police. Again, authority through the governor. And really, it's really to control highways, truck traffic, tunnels, and all those things. He can limit the flow of vehicle traffic. So an example, during a high wind event, he may restrict the how fast they can go on the highway and close trucks from driving through a highway, all those things. And to activate the National Guard. Here at the local level, we have to see what's coming our way and what are our needs. So the local declaration is different than the state. The state is looking at the highways and moving all that stuff. The local, we can restrict parking, allow parking, and those are the sectors. So a lot of people assume, hey, it's a state of emergency, I don't have to work, I don't have to go to school. That is not the case. Neither declaration is telling any business or school to open, close. That's really handled on an individual basis. The school, I know the superintendent has her procedure for that, but that is not tied into any sort of declaration. So the Office of Emergency Management is made up of myself as the coordinator, Alex McDonald as a deputy coordinator, and Captain as a party is another deputy coordinator. And by statute, so we have the Local Emergency Management Council, which is made up of 15 members. So we had our meeting today. We've had the Short Hills Mall, we have the water company, we have a business rep with Steve Brillo. We have our department representation. We have our partners from Essex County OEM, which is the sheriff office. We also had the state police office of emergency management, their regional rep was there as well. By statute, we get our power from the mayor, and our goal is to prepare the community for any hazards or peril. The hazard mitigation plan is a plan that gets developed, and it's good for every 5 years. And what do? We conduct a hazard risk assessment community and to determine what happens. Hurricanes, storms, winter storms, flooding, man-made natural disasters and stuff like that. And what the council is supposed to do is prepare the community through our annexes, our emergency operations plan. You know, disasters are a local issue. They start at the local area. I think we'll say that again later, and they end in the local area. So, you know, we do get support from our county partners, but we also get support from our state partners and ultimately FEMA. But everything has to come through the township physically. And most importantly, we're very fortunate in our town to have a flood mitigation advisory committee. And I'm sure Alex, our administrator, is a member of that committee as well, and he can go into more detail of that.
Great. Now I'm just going to turn it over to Battalion Chief Ted Beatty, who's going to speak to the fire department's preparations and response during storms.
The fire department has a military grade high water truck and a Zodiac rescue boat that we would use in the event of evacuation of people from their homes or their vehicles. We also are involved in pumping out of your house of the water once the storm is over with. We encourage you to call 911 for any life-threatening situations. They take priority over any incident that is currently dealing with the storm. The non-emergency issues have to call the 973-564-7035 number, which is the fire department's main desk. In the event that you're calling that number, that is for all the non-emergencies, you will be talking to one of the fire department or a member of the department, and they're going to be asking you a few questions that you need to be, we would like you to answer in relevance of what's going on, where you're located, a phone number to call you at. We ask you to be patient because we'll be inundated with phone calls in the event of emergencies like this. Once we develop a list of what the problems are, we then organize on how we are going to take care of the situation. But we do our best in it. There's no order, but it's going to come into prioritize of what the problems are that are going on in the town. We will get to you as soon as and physically as possible once we develop that list. Also, the fire department involved in pumping out your home. This process starts after the storm ends. We have to make sure that the storm is over with, the water has a place to go. So outside your yard, if your yard is flooded, we have to de-water your yard or take care of your yard. That starts with the DPW, and we also assist them in handling that. In the event of pumping out your house, we have to have a place for the water to go. So the water has to recede enough for us to be able to do that. The fire department has over 22 electric pumps, 8 gas-powered pumps, 7 generators. in our supply in that trailer that we carry that's mobile. We're able to take that mobile trailer to the area that is in need and set up an area to supply our members with what they need to evacuate the water from your house. Our pumps do need a minimum of 2 inches of water to remove, and that also leaves 2 inches of water. So once the fire department is done, you're still gonna have a few inches of water. Our pumps being the way they are developed and designed, they cannot suck the water out completely to nothing. We do our best to put those pumps in some pump holes or the lowest area of your house that we can to get out as much water as possible, but there is gonna be a little bit of water left over. This dewatering process takes time. It's a slow process. We cannot devote every pump to one person. We try to spread it out to try to equalize and to dewater as many people at the same time as possible. So,
Great, thank you, Battalion Chief. We'll get into some other comments later after everybody's gone through their particular departments, but I'm now going to turn it over to Captain Mark as a party of the police department to speak about their prep and things they're responsible for during a storm.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Police department has many issues during a hurricane. One would be flooding. One would be high winds, knocking trees and wires down. Our main purpose is to keep everybody safe, drivers and pedestrians traveling through the town. The police barricade and monitor roads that need to be closed due to floods, due to trees down. We also monitor and basically babysit down to electric lines. So nobody can walk until the power company can get there and make it safe. And during all this, we'll provide a response to life-threatening situations, includes medical aids, water rescue, crashes, crimes in progress. Again, Milburn Police messages: stay in your home, just like Chief Echeverria said. Do not venture out in the street. Do not walk in flooded waters. There could be a manhole open. There could be an electric line sitting there. The police department, we maintain up to the minute list of street closures, trees down, power lines down. We share this back with OEM, the fire department, DPW, the county, electric company, and township officials. Police department has also been able to, when there's power failures, we utilize generators to monitor traffic lights. They've become very important because it'll free officers up to watch and monitor other sections of the town. I'd just like to let the residents know that we've had many issues in the past of people driving on closed roads. It is a violation of a motor vehicle law to drive on a closed road or to remove barricades. This seems to happen every storm. It puts drivers at risk, pedestrians at risk, and our first responders at risk of a very dangerous situation. So I just want to remind everybody not to drive on a closed road. When in doubt, call the police, find another way to your house. Just call us. We'll get you the proper information.
Okay. Gonna turn it over to Tom Doty, who is the superintendent of public works, to go over their responsibilities as well as what they do pre and post storm.
Good evening. Like most everyone said, we all work together to rectifying the situation that we have. What we do obviously at DPW is the same thing. So pre-storm, we actually, as Chief said, we have our own weather report. We check the weather. We watch for high winds, high water. We go out and we routinely check our rivers and stream corridors for any down trees, and we do this quite regularly, not just before a storm. And obviously the things that you would think of is we obviously check all our storm drains. We clean them as the picture shows. We make sure there's nothing on the top, branches, leaves, things like that. We also go out and obviously check all of our generators, all of our barricades that we assist the police department with. We have a trailer, we have sandbags, we have all that material ready to go. We also recently have set up a station for homeowners that need sandbags. They can come to the DPW yard at 345 Essex Street, and we will allow them to fill them themselves and use sandbags if they are needed. And obviously all of our equipment that you would think, you know, we also assist the fire department with any pumps. We have a few generators also, and, you know, all the stuff like our trucks, chainsaws, all of that equipment. So, you know, we make sure we're ready to go in the event of a storm. And we also assist the power company because our tree crew were actually trained to work near energized conductors, so our guys can do some of that work too. Obviously, we work for the power company and wait for them to direct us to do that. So that's pretty much what I have.
You wanna go to your quick fix?
Sure. As you can see there, also, you know, we have roughly 2,500 stormwater catch basins. There's obviously 73 miles of roads, over 80 miles of, you know, underground sanitary sewer lines, 90 miles of storm drains, and 49 pipes and grates are where some of these pipes flow out into a natural area. So it's not always, you know, piped. There's open channels and so forth. And there's grates in some of the backyards where there's easements. The clapper valves are some of our stormwater valves that are near the river have clapper valves on them, so the rivers don't back up into the storm drains and further flood more infrastructure and homes. And obviously there's, you know, roughly over 9,000 street trees that we are responsible for and maintain all throughout the year.
Rob? Response in storm recovery.
You know, our number one priority for public safety in general is the health and safety and the wellness of the residents. In the fire service, the number one is always life and safety. Everything we do is based around saving lives, and then that's the number one priority. Same thing with emergency management. So response and threat recovery, recovery takes time, as Lieutenant Chief Beatty alluded to, and saying with Tom Doty and Captain Azzopardi. There's a lot of moving components during a storm and a lot of equipment. You know, saving lives is easy. We're going to risk a lot to save a lot, but we're also going to risk little to save little. So at some point, it just takes a lot of time. When you have a lot of calls coming in, it just takes time to go to every house. So the recovery process is even slower because now, as Ted alluded to, is extracting all that water, getting to those locations. If there's trees down, that has to, you know, as Tom just explained, that's a whole process within itself. If there's a power line down with the tree, then it becomes a whole different process on top of that. So, and as we know, and it's hard to explain to a homeowner that just takes time, that whole remediation process and getting the water out and all that. Pumping out, begin with the exterior of the home, then to move to the interior. Certain sections of the community have that issue, is that we can't get in until the water goes down. It's a challenge. I mean, we'll go in and rescue people, remove people and do all those things, but we can't pump your basement out first while your outside has full of water. And what happens is it causes too much pressure on your foundation and it can collapse the foundation. So our policy is not to do that. We make sure that the outside water, whether it's through Public Works with their larger pumps, or just within time, the water table just goes down, or the other pumps that we have that are you know, Gilbert Place and Haran Circle and all those pumps. The water, it's meant to drain those neighborhoods. Then we go in and pump the outside. Clearing debris, again, takes a long time, right? We do put debris in certain locations just to be picked up later time, just to open roads and expedite things, and Tom and his crew do an excellent job of that. Again, that takes time. Damage assessment, you know, we have to go door to door. The state of New Jersey is rolling out a new program that's going to help us tremendously. We have our own crisis track software that we could track damage. But again, as some of the neighbors that spoke to us, and we saw that we're going door to door. We're taking pictures and analyzing each house to label it. Is it medium damage, low damage, or is high damage? That's all tied into the property assessment, and then it gives you a number, and that goes to FEMA, and that's how the declaration process goes. We have to meet a certain threshold for Essex County. Essex County has to meet a certain threshold for the state of New Jersey, and if both thresholds are met, then the reimbursement process could be achieved down the road. So like I just stated, all those things are moving together, all together, it takes time.
Shoot.
Individual family preparedness is vital, increasing overall community resilience. Most importantly, insurance, know your risks. Most do. It's not, unless you're new to the home. The state of New Jersey has a new rule that they have to declare that when you buy the house or sell. So that's something that you may know. But before that, you didn't have to declare it. So some residents didn't know that they live in a flood-prone area. It's very easy. You can just Google your address on any of the FEMA maps, and it'll tell you what level of flooding you live in, or whether you're in a class X or AA. I forget what exactly the ratings are, but you could actually do that yourself and know that where you're at. Most important community stakeholder is the resident themselves, right? They know their neighborhoods. They know, especially the ones that have been there for a while, they know what occurs during a storm. They know how to prepare. If you live in those areas and you're not affected, help your neighbor. Just clearing debris when it's safe to do so, helping them remediate. We were very fortunate during Ida, and everybody saw that downtown, is that we had a whole bunch of volunteers come in, and pretty much within 24 to 48 hours, everything was out in the curb. Same thing in the South Mountain section. A lot of these groups came in helping assistance. So that to me is just what Milburn is about, right? Is helping neighbor. We haven't opened our shelter, thankfully, but again, the residents would help us staff that. That would be a 24/7 operation, 360. For not 365. I apologize about that. If that's not that long, then
We're in real trouble.
we're in real trouble for the duration of the event. On top of the staff, the Milburn staff, but again, life goes on, right? Government has to go on. There's other emergencies during these storms, after these storms. So, we're focused on the storm, but everything else has to, the business goes on, the show goes on, as I say. Mitigate your home from hazards. When we send out our storm alerts prior to a storm that's coming, whether it's a winter storm, snowstorm, whatever may be coming, we list a lot of things. Clean your gutters, check your drains. If you live in a flood-prone area and you have your sewage, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but there's like the sewage skeleton or the valve, the check valve, make sure that's operational, know where it's at. I went to a residence once and the individual didn't know where it was, and we looked for it, we found it, but it's like, know those things before. And then you could do your own damage assessment. And on the town site, we put up a link, you can actually report to us. And now the state of New Jersey is gonna roll out a program similar that you'll be able to report to that. That expedites the claim, whether it's through your insurance, FEMA, or if you're looking for public assistance, or if you're looking for individual assistance.
Thanks, Rob. In terms of households, Battalion Chief Beatty will go over this a little bit as well, but create a disaster supply kit. One of the most important things families can do is be prepared in the event that something will happen. While you never want it to, you want to make sure that you have something in your home that you can grab and go if you need to, or that you can persist in your home for several days without electricity or some sort of assistance in the event, depending on the scale of the event. I'll go back to Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Irene, which this community experienced power outages for up to 15 days. And so while we hope to never experience that again, because that is a very long time to be without power. I think that everyone has to understand that during an event like Hurricane Sandy or Hurricane Irene, we're not talking about just a Millburn impact, right? We're talking about a statewide impact in which tens of thousands of customers are without power. And, you know, our job from an OEM perspective is first and foremost to prioritize any critical infrastructure that needs to be re-energized. And that is generally going to be government buildings, which thankfully most are, if not all, are on generator power. But then you talk about the schools, anything that assists the OEM office in response to an emergency. And then JCP&L has to go through their own process in how they re-energize their lines. And sometimes, and I've heard it over the years, they say, I swear I'm last, always last to be turned on. And that very well could be true, because you are one of those last homes on a particular circuit. And until you get energized, you know, people before you get energized, they can't energize your home. But determine your best evacuation route. Make sure you know how you're going to get out of your home. Sometimes part of your plan is also being out of your house before it even happens, having a place that you're going to go prior to a storm, maybe a friend's house, maybe a family member's house, somebody in town that you've already established a plan with, and you say, look, we know there's a big storm coming. My particular section of town or my home is subject to flooding. I hope I can just stay with you tonight just to ride out the storm. Have those plans in place now. Make sure you're having those conversations ahead of time. Know how to shut off your utilities, much to the chief's point about understanding whether you have a backflow preventer and where that's located. And if it's operational, you're going to want to know how to shut off your water, how to shut off your gas, things like that. And just know where these things are, particularly too, if somebody comes by and asks you, utility company comes out, says, hey, look, we need to shut down this area or whatever it is, you should know where those things are in your house. And emergency alerts and warnings. The township has several ways of communicating with residents. Facebook, X, I think it's called now, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, the township's website, Notify Me, Millburn Alert. All of these are ways that we communicate with our residents. And prior to a storm, the most effective way for us to communicate is through Millburn Alert. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but Millburn Alert allows us to text, email, and call if necessary to residents that are signed up for it. And this has been our preferred method of communication prior to storms, to make sure people are getting prepared, that they understand what's happening, understand what's coming. And that initial alert from the Office of Emergency Management usually provides a bunch of information, and sometimes it's very similar to the last one you got 2 weeks ago, but it's a good reminder of all of those steps that you should be taking prior to a storm. And so we want to continue to develop that habit in our residents, for people to say, all right, we know bad weather's coming. Let's make sure that all the leaders are flowing correctly. Let's make sure, there's no obstructions. Let's make sure I'm moving stuff out of the basement if my basement is prone to getting wet. Let's make sure, I have my bag ready, or my emergency kit, whatever it might be that makes you feel prepared and makes you feel safe in the event of something like a natural disaster or a natural event is coming. So just, if you're not signed up, sign up. Make sure that you have, especially when it comes to emergency alerts, that you're checking off that you want to be notified via text, via email, and via phone call, so that you get that information efficiently and effectively. Real quick, just going to go over flood warning, flood watch. This is something that if you've been paying attention recently, it seems like most storms carry a flood watch with them, right? If there's an inch or two of rain, there's probably going to be a flood watch issued. A flood watch is issued when flooding is possible, right? So a flood warning is issued when flooding is happening or will happen soon. So flood watch might happen. Flood warning is gonna happen. So I think that's a really important distinction. But most storms now are carrying a flood watch. At times I get frustrated with that, because I think it desensitizes people to what's going on. But it's something to pay very much attention to. whether it's whatever your preferred weather app is, Weather Channel, things like that. Just pay attention to these watches and warnings. They will also give you an indication of the severity level of the storm, and how expeditiously you should be preparing, or what your action should be then too. Next, I'll go back to Rob for the gauges to watch. For those that we have in town, we have the east and the west branch of the Rahway River that runs through the township. The west branch of the Rahway River actually runs right through the downtown, comes down through South Mountain Reservation, runs right through the downtown. The east branch runs under Vauxhall Road and behind South Mountain Estates, and they converge to go under 78. And so these are not our only problem areas, but certainly our biggest problem areas. We also have a brook called Van Winkle, which runs down through the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum, goes through an express sewer, storm sewer under the Glenwood area of town, empties out behind the Upper Milburn Avenue Business District, and flows down past the high school. This is also at times a problematic area, when it comes to large rain events. We have several smaller brooks throughout the township. If people aren't aware of the history of Milburn, it was quite a riverine place. We have Taylor Brook, Skiff Brook, Canoe Brook, all of these small brooks that run through short hills that can also cause problems at times, depending on the severity of the storm. So with that, I'm just going to give it over to Rob to go over the gauges to watch.
Thanks, Alex. So what we do before a storm, obviously we're heating warnings, we're getting all the weather data. But once the storm is here upon us, we begin monitoring the gauges, right? The East Branch one, as Alex has stated, is over down by behind the temple in Milburn Ave on the Vauxhall Road bridge. The one on the West Branch is located over by Diamond Pond, right? Yeah, Diamond Mill Pond. So what I do is, if you go on to, which was, okay, the West Branch, if you go up to there, the gauge shows you 7 days, 30 days, or 2 years. But also there's a section on that website that you could pull almost 20 years of data. So you could say, okay, when they say you're going to get 8-inch rainstorm, you could go back in history to say what happened during an 8-inch storm, like an Ida event. And then you could, equate that, okay, in 8 inches, we're going to get downtown flooding, or we're going to get flooding down South Mountain. Or this winter, we had many multiple 4-inch rain events. You could go back through all that history and say, okay, this is what happened that day, that time. And you could really say, okay, well, nothing happened to my house. So what we do is we look at the gauge currently, and as it rises, we get alerts and we get emails saying, okay, it's now, 2 feet. It started at 2 feet, up it's 2.5. On the West Branch, 2.5 is the flood flooding stage. And then we keep on monitoring that. And then that's how we say, okay, the water is high there, so it's going to be high downstream eventually. We do the same thing with the West Branch, which Alex stated comes down to the downtown. That's the reservation. And I apologize, the East Branch is over by the temple. That comes down to the backside of the reservation through Maplewood, which is the valley. And it comes down and they all meet, go under Route 78 together. And that's all that Home Depot, Route 78 area. And that's where all that water goes under the highway and goes into the township of Springfield, and then through Springfield down into Cranford and so forth and so on. Monitoring these gauges works. You could do that from home, on your cell phone, on an iPad, or whatever, however you get it, you have internet access. You can monitor these. But to me, the most important part of these maps or these systems is the historical data. What happened? A 4-inch rainstorm to me at home, or I live in Cranford where it floods. A 4-inch rainstorm really doesn't. It makes me be calm. I'm like, okay, 4 inches. That happened 20 times the past 3 years. We're going to be okay. That 8-inch, different story, right? So these gauges help me prepare the community. It helps me personally prepare my own house. And but most importantly is that they're available to anybody, and you could have your own plan and read the gauges and see what how your property or neighborhood does in water. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think also another point to that is it's a very safe way to monitor the rivers. At times during storms, we have people wanting to go and look at what the river looks like during a heavy rain, during a storm, a hurricane, or a tropical storm. This is unadvisable. This is not something that, and we've already warned about it several times in this presentation, but I ask that residents leave that to your public safety professionals, your Office of Emergency Management. That just puts everyone in danger again, by going out and trying to monitor these and see, how close is it to overtopping, Milburn Avenue Bridge? Well, you don't want to be there when it does. And so, just again, using these gauges is a safe way to do that. So, next slide there, Tim, thanks. All right, so at this time, I'm gonna ask Battalion Chief Ted B just go over the disaster supply kit. I tell you, Ted outdid himself this year. And he's gonna explain to you where he got this, what it is, and how and what it entails.
So this is a fairly simple disaster kit. It's meant for 4 people for 3 days. And that's how they are rated. You can get 2 people certain days, 3 people, so you get what you accommodate for your family. Inside the kit, it's all bare essentials, simplified. You have small first aid kit. You'll have a rain poncho. You'll have a blanket. You have water. You have protein bars, enough to last you for the 4 days. There's also glow sticks. There's gloves. There's goggles, all packed up neatly into this little packet. Like we said earlier, backpack, something you can grab. This is designed for that whole situation. Inside there is everything that's on this list, all nicely wrapped and packed away. Handle on the top, backpack on the back. Nice and easy to carry. Like I said, you can get these on Amazon. On the next day, this one was relatively inexpensive, about $80. And this, like I said, this is the bigger one. It's the 4-person, 3 days. So there are smaller ones for a little bit less, but that's it.
Thank you, Ted. Yeah, for several years as we put these presentations on, we've always told people, hey, make sure you put this in, make sure you put that in, and at times, it's always a thought, and you want to do it, but life happens, and you continue doing other things. To be able to buy something that's pre-made, ready to go, something you can just grab and go, I think is a really smart way of going about doing this. And it's a better way to make sure, and for us to sort of promote people being prepared. So that was a great find. Just in terms of making a plan, some of this is in the moment. Some of this is some of this is pre-storm. Making sure you're heeding the messages, whatever's being put out by Office of Emergency Management here, whatever the State Office of Emergency Management is doing. Also, understanding your insurance. We just did recently a presentation on insurance resiliency, flood risk. While I don't believe it's yet on the township's YouTube channel, we'll be posting that tomorrow with this presentation as well, just to make sure some people can watch that after it happened. And that was extremely informative, and had 2 really solid individuals on there. I think one individual, Mr. Song from FEMA Region 2, just a wealth of knowledge in flood risk and insurance. And then the other guy, I apologize, I don't remember his name, Tyler Ardren, I think. He actually worked in the insurance business, works in the insurance business. Wasn't there to sell anything to anybody, just but letting people know how it all works. And so just, you know, one of the things that we often get asked here, especially in town hall, is new homeowners will come in and they'll say, you know, I live in this particular area. Do I need flood insurance? And you know, it's tough to tell people, yeah, you know, yes, you should get flood insurance. But I always say, if you're asking the question, you probably should, right? If there's something on your mind enough, or you're worried enough, or you understand the area enough that you are asking whether you should have flood insurance, you probably should be getting it. People think that just because they're in an X zone, which is the 500-year flood zone, that they don't necessarily need flood insurance. You know, 500 years and probability is low. Get it. Peace of mind is worth everything. So, and generally speaking, just because it's an X zone doesn't mean that it doesn't flood more often than the probability indicated in the zone. The township has a wealth of resources on its website, ready.gov. Tim's going to click through these just so that people can view the website really briefly. We're just going to go through. Ready.gov is a website dedicated to making sure people are prepared for natural disasters, making sure they have plans in place, whatever it may be. And, you know, they've broken it down by, you know, what older adults should be doing, flooding, wildfires, which we, you know, don't necessarily have to worry about, but you never know with South Mountain Reservation being so close. You know, we do have a large wooded area here. So making a plan. FEMA.gov, self-explanatory. We have the Office of Emergency Management website for the township. Sorry, Tim, I'm cruising ahead. So this is an explanation of the office, as well as helpful contact information, register ready, which we're going to get into in a second, and various other links that will help residents navigate preparedness, previous sessions such as this, and information. We have a flooding page on the township's website. Post Ida, we created, the township created a flood mitigation advisory committee. What I would say took the most important step in accepting that our community does flood, and that we need to advocate and ensure that our residents are prepared, that they're knowledgeable, that they know about it, that we're taking extra steps like this to provide information regarding flooding. And so there's a page here as well about other resources for flood preparedness, you know, during a flood, after a flood, all of those things that we're kind of talking about now. So, and then lastly, Smart 911, which is on the homepage of the township website. There's a button under popular links called Milburn Alert. That is what I was talking about in our preferred method of communication during an event is Milburn Alert. That will take you to the Smart 911 page and allow you to sign up for these alerts. Next page is for Tom. I mean, this is just an infographic of you. Yeah.
The main important thing here that we always try to tell people is on the sewer lines, as in the diagram, that there's a backflow preventer to stop it in high water and infiltration and flood for sewage to come back into your home. So in these flood-prone areas, you know, obviously you have to speak to a plumber, and I'm not going to pretend to know all the different types of devices, but obviously it's very helpful to prevent that.
Thank you. Yeah, and that diagram is great. It's on our website as well. Gives you sort of what all the things around the house that you need to be thoughtful of and concerned about, and prepare. Business preparation. I'm gonna just go through this quickly. It's not all that much different than a residential preparation, with the exception that they need to think about data protection. They need to think about their inventory and where that's located and how they're going to protect their inventory. In our town, a lot of the downtown businesses and Upper Milburn Avenue businesses have basements that they store their stuff in. And so if there is the probability of flooding, they want to make a plan of what they're going to do with that inventory so that they don't lose it. I remember one business during Ida had $100,000 worth of inventory gone as a result of flooding in their basement. And so, thinking about how as a business, you're going to recover, how you're going to create your own plans for that business. Next one is our contact information. Everybody, this is again on the website. And these are all numbers that people should have handy in their phone, quite honestly. These numbers should be in everybody's phone so that they have them and they're aware of them, and that they're not looking for wherever they may have put them or trying to get on the internet. Just make sure they're on your phone. Milburn Alert, we already went over and showed you where that is on the website. I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk about the Register Ready, which has been communicated a couple times this year already.
So the New Jersey Special Needs Registry for Disasters is called Register Ready. It's really for access and functional needs residents. In a nutshell, pretty much what it is before you register now, and it's protected data. It only goes to the county, and then it goes to the New Jersey State OEM. So the data is protected. So in an emergency or a storm like an Ida, we could look before the storm to see where we need to deploy certain assets. Do we have residents that are not mobile? Are they on their beds, bedridden? We could, if we know that, we can knock on their doors, call them, reach out to them before a storm, maybe move them to a second floor, or actually relocate them if they live in a flood-prone area. This is what Register Ready is about. Anybody who has needs, this is only our way to know. We may get a call that day saying, hey, I have a loved one that has whatever. That's a little late. We will try our best to get to them. If it's an area that we can access, we'll get to it. We have marine resources, we have a boat, we have the high water truck, we have public works with front end loaders, the police department has a Humvee vehicle. We're gonna get there, because like I said before, we're gonna risk a lot to save a lot. But this system is about capturing that data before, so we can make that contact with an individual. It could be just a snowstorm. Hey, somebody that has to be driven to dialysis, we could partner with the Milburn Shore Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad and maybe arrange transportation for them, or through a private. And really, that's what it is capturing that data so we could beforehand react to it.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Emergency supply list, we've already gone over. Just a couple other things that are added here, which is if you have a battery powered or hand crank radio, that's always helpful in the event of power outages. I always try to convince people that they should be buying some other sort of external power source for their cell phones, for other devices that have multiple types of different charging apparatus on it. Thinking about also just other things that you yourself may need, extra pet food, whatever it is. So just continue to focus on keeping an emergency kit. Communication. We've gone over this quite a bit in this already. So I think the most important part about this, and there's two things that I just want to make sure I touch on, is that the township's focus is assessing the town and conducting emergency protective measures. We are not going to provide a play-by-play on the storm. We are going to put out information as it is needed and as necessary to make sure people are informed and updated. In addition, when if there is an event in which we do open up the OEM center, the Office of Emergency Management, or we are answering phones on a non-emergency line, such as the fire department. I've sat in on 3 storms so far, answering phone calls from residents. And one of the things that I just always reiterate is that if you call once, we've got it. Right? I know that it's frustrating, especially, and it's scary, and people don't understand, you know, they don't deal with this all the time. But if you call once and we tell you that we've noted what's going on your particular property, because you're calling a non-emergency line, you're not in crisis, you're not in an emergency, we're making note of the issue, whether it's a fallen branch on your driveway, whether it's something that took out the service to your home, or the cable or the FiOS or whatever it is to your home, or there's a tree in the middle of the road, you're letting us know, we're making note of it. Battalion Chief Ted Beatty said that earlier, that we have a list, and then that list is sort of adjudicated as efficiently as possible. So if we have a truck in the Glenwood section, we're going to take, you know, the calls in that section so that we can you know, do that as efficiently as possible. What we don't necessarily need at that time, when everything is sort of coming in all at once, is multiple calls that we haven't been there yet. As Rob said, recovery is time consuming. Recovery, you need to be patient with. And so we're going to be inundated with calls, stacked with calls. So calling back to see where we're at or whether we're going to get there is not helpful, plain and simple. If we call and we say we got it, we got it. Okay. With that, I'd just like to, you know, I think we'll just wrap it up. But Sarah, I know, yeah. You want to add, yeah, I would just, if you don't mind.
Token resident.
Huh?
I'll be your token resident.
Please, that would be great. Sarah Sherman, who's on the Township's Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, I've asked to, you know, say a couple words about her experience during storms. So Sarah, appreciate it.
Okay, so I came prepared to do that, but actually I came in a little bit late and I have some questions about things that were mentioned. So from my own experience, what I would say, first of all, is to get flood insurance. And I'm trying to tell everyone to do that. I've had flood insurance since Hurricane Irene. So mine is a little cheaper than some others, but slowly rising. I think that everything that you have here is excellent and helpful, and we have acquired so much knowledge and information over the years that we've been doing this. This is really excellent information for us to have, and the residents too, I think, have learned as we've gone along. What is it that we have questions about? What is it that what expectations should we have or not have? And I feel that in my neighborhood in South Mountain, I'm trying to share that with people who might be new. So this is what I would like to ask. One of the questions that always comes up is the timing of moving cars to higher ground. And some people make their own decisions about that, whether you've put out the alert that we can go to the parking deck. Some people have some other places. Some people also have friends that they go to and park their cars there. So the timing of that is important. Something that's always come up, and this came up in the, it was this slide, the flood safety tips. I think that was it, not driving through water and so forth. So particular to my neighborhood, I would say is that it might be that, let's say someone's coming home and the water's starting to come up a little bit. Maybe the barricades have gone up, maybe they have not. And I think people are really confused about what to do there. They want to go somewhere and they don't want to move the barricade. So I think understanding that is critical. If we had, I don't know, if we had some, and you can't always do this, but if we had some sense of the timing of that, so know that past a certain point, you won't be able to make a left off Milburn Avenue and go down to a side street that has already begun to gather water. So that was something that came to mind, and I know that it comes up all the time. I love this. I'm going to take a picture of it, the emergency kit, because we've talked about that over the years. We have all become gauge watchers. I've been for a while, and everybody knows about it now. And just to remind people, you can set yourself an alert. And so mine goes off at a certain point. I think I have them set at 5 feet. Before that, I think I'm okay. The backflow preventers, something that residents don't all know about. And that's a key point. So people need to educate themselves on that. Talk to the plumber. And the special needs registry, I have a question about that because if, as I understand it, it goes to the central database and then you have access to that? Is that how that would work?
Very good question, Sarah. I apologize. I did not include that. Yes. Certain individuals in the township have rights to gather that data. So right now it's myself, Alex, Captain has a party, and I believe Maeve really to help us corral all the data. But it's.
But you will know it. So if there's a
Yes,
member
yes.
of the household who's aged and, you know,
As long as they have registered.
yes, absolutely. Not calling you at the last minute and saying, but to register with this. And this is secure?
It's secure. It's backed by state police and JOEM. They're the ones that it's housed in Trenton. We have access to that through the county, but it's secure.
Okay, okay. And then finally, what I've been doing, I do my own research on products that will help flood-proof my home. And I just want to encourage people to do that as well. Some are expensive, some are less expensive, some are available at Home Depot, but that, you know, anything that we can do within our own homes to flood-proof basements or whatever vulnerable areas we have, I would encourage. And thank you so much for doing this. This is a really important session.
Yeah, just to touch on a couple of the things that you said, Sarah. One is certainly about the products. You know, I agree and encourage everybody to do their own research and what works for them. There are things called door dams. There are various barriers that you can put around your home, and so there are products out there that if you've experienced flooding in the past or are concerned about flooding, are wise investments. And as Tom said, you know, prior to storms, we will communicate sandbag station in the DPW yard where residents can come fill their own sandbags and take them. Just a quick note about disposal of sandbags. If they are not impacted by floodwaters, you can certainly, you know, reuse them, or you can bring them back to the yard and we'll recycle the sand and we'll potentially reuse the bags or recycle the bags. But if they are impacted by flood water, then they are considered contaminated. And so they need to be disposed of properly. Again, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, they can bring them back to the yard as well. Yes, and we will dispose of them properly. What we have is a street sweeping pile that is disposed of in a particular way. That sand would then be included in that street sweeping pile to make sure it's disposed of correctly. I'm going to turn to the fire department and the police department regarding the road closure question. Because I understand it, and you indicated it's a difficult thing, but I just whether they have a sense of an answer to that.
So with the police department, we like to when it's a serious danger, we like to keep an officer there. Obviously, some of these hurricanes, we've just been outnumbered by street closures, and you know, we try to do as best we can to keep an officer there so the resident can pull up. We can say, hey, you have to park your car here, park at the parking garage, you'll be able to walk. There's times that we leave barricades unmanned, and it is confusing because, oh, that's my house, I have to get there. This is something, call the police desk. Hey, is it safe to go down the non-emergency line? But we do have, when we make extreme close roads, we put yellow tape up and we really make sure nobody knows. But then we have people pull that down. You'd be surprised how many times this has happened because they want to go that way. And nobody knows, all right, the water's 6 inches, but then it turns into a foot. You can't tell. So we've had to rescue people. We have people driving over electric lines, squeezing under trees that if they fell would kill them in the car. So it's very dangerous. So like I said, if We're gonna try to do better now with social media since Sandy, and, you know, it's a lot more, we're doing a lot more communication. So maybe that's something we can do. Hey, this street, it's a soft closure, you know, this one, do not go down no matter what, you know, we'll make a hard closure. But we do try to keep officers with, if it's a very dangerous situation, we like to basically monitor the street closure, because we've learned that people just ignore barricades, and that helps you.
So I just want to add to a little bit what the captain said, is that we pre-stage equipment in certain areas of town, like barricades before a storm. And when we see signs, whether it's a gauge that is too high, or we see a lot of volume in the system or pressure, and we start noticing that some of the sewer grates are starting to lift, we may, or not we, it's really the police department, may pre-close that road, knowing that, hey, Taylor Park has come over its back, the street, the curb, Taylor Park on Main Street, I'm sorry. They may close the road, so when you're driving by, you're like, oh, it looks normal, I could pass it, but in 10 minutes, it might not be that case. So we pre-stage equipment and then pre-deploy it, and then close roads proactively based on the data that we're getting through the gauges or visual data, because we're all driving around looking at where the river is actually at, where Taylor Park is at, Grand Circle area, Ridgewood, Gilbert, all that 9 yards up to the reservation. And that makes that determination on the patrol sergeant or lieutenant that they will close that road.
I think it also brings up a sort of a broader point, which is if we're at the point where roads are closing, you should be in your house. You should be at home. You should be staying safe in your house or at your friend's house or whatever your plan dictated. You know, I get that there are certain intersections, particularly in South Mountain neighborhood, where you look at it and you say, well, I could definitely drive through there. I think that part of that is also just stay home, stay off the roads, right? We put those barricades up, and like Rob said, and a lot of times it's preemptive because we know what's going to happen. That one of the last storms in December, I remember we closed down Main Street when just as the water was coming over the bank onto Main Street from Taylor Park, and you know it was just a little bit of a trickle down the northbound lane, but eventually that becomes more, and so it's better. We're better off closing it prior to people being on that road and possibly getting into a situation than waiting for now. It's a situation. There's people currently on that roadway, so that's sort of what happens there. And to answer the question about the parking deck and when to park, so our goal is to have a sense of that storm at least 24 hours prior, and part of that messaging that goes out through the Office of Emergency Management will indicate, hey, you know, if you are concerned about parking in your particular location, you can move your cars to higher ground. I think the police department, we've kind of got this understanding at this point where we're dealing with severe weather. We're not worried about, you know, if cars, you know, are parked on higher ground on the street, or if they're in the parking deck at whatever level is indicated in that message. Generally, it's going to be the third level of the parking deck. But I think that it's usually about a 24-hour period. And it's definitely not going to be any more than 24 hours that we're going to allow people to park on higher ground or in the parking deck. All right. Anybody on the Zoom that would like to ask a question? How many you got on there? 2. Okay. Mr. Cosgrove, do you have any questions?
Well, yes and no. I wasn't going to ask this, but on the backflow valves, how do you know whether you have one, and how do you assess whether you need one?
Yeah.
Without holding you to it.
Yeah, what I've found is we just talk to plumbers, and they have cameras that they can stick down in the line if they're not sure, and that would be your best bet, having them come inspect it. So
no, Tom, is that usually on the outside lateral, or is it inside the home?
Put that diagram back up. Most of them, I think, are outside of the home, I believe. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, that was a big one after Ida, and I think a lot of people really took heed in that and started getting backflow preventers. It looks to me. Before the house. Go ahead, Ted, you got it.
They need access to put those valves in, so generally, if you already have your house is built, they're not gonna come in and rip up your basement floor and to put them in, it doesn't cost effectively, they'll find a way outside where your line comes outside, and that's where the backflow preventer valve will go. So. I know the picture looks like it shows inside, but they're generally outside the house. Unless it's built with the house being built and where they put, some of them, there is a few houses in South Mount section that had a older manual valve put in many years ago. But that's kind of not what they do now that they're just kind of generally in the front lawn.
And then if you've never flooded before,
It's,
They're not holding you to
could-
this.
You could look at it this way, it's one of those things where it's in most people's eyes, it's their form of insurance.
okay,
It's not generally, you look at backflow preventers for that reason for sewer lines, it's not just for a storm. If there's a problem with the sewer line, we've gotten the calls where it's backed up, there's no storm. So it helps you in that aspect also. So it's not just for storms.
thank you.
okay. Well, thank you for those who came out. And certainly, again, we've accomplished recording this video so that we can put it up on the website. We'll also put it up on, we'll also put up the other video regarding flood insurance, flood risk and resiliency. And I just put a note that the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee is planning to have a meeting open to the public and everyone who would like to attend sometime in June. And that would be at the library. And so more information to come on that, but it would just be an open discussion regarding, in particular, the East Branch, West Branch, and Van Winkle Brooks. And with the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee. So just putting that on everybody's radar. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.